Hi, how's it going? Very glad to be back. I'm actually surprised I got invited back to kick things off for the second year in a row. Not only because I snubbed Francis a little bit with the podcast book recommendation last year, but also I was very sick leading up to the event, and I was pretty sure I wasn't contagious anymore. But I also wanted to gut it out and not cancel on EC. But I was pretty hopped up on Sudafed that day, and I'm not really sure what you're asking me, Francis, so I have no idea what I answered. But today's going to be a little different. They've asked me to do a bit of a TED Talk on net zero and reliability and considerations for rate setters. So what I've decided to do, and two key bits to look out for, is take a little more Sudafed and get creative. I decided to interact with AI a little bit. So there'll be a couple instances here in the presentation where I'm sharing some intelligence conclusions. And what I found was that AI output actually aligned quite well with some conclusions that myself and some colleagues came to recently on a real-world trip over to Europe, where we were looking at what some of the utilities over there were doing to enhance reliability in the grid, and how regulation has been a key driver and factor in the success of that. So, first, a little context setting. And is this on? Is it on now? Hello? Check. All right. So one of the key things that we always hear and have been hearing for the last few days here at the Campus conference is the lack of policy clarity, and the impacts that has on decision making, of course, and frankly, the impacts it has on regulators, what you can do, what you can lead with, how innovative you can get, right? It's a problem. We have the Canadian electricity regulations, which are ominous. I know the membership of EC spends a lot of time in that discussion, and it may all be for naught because they may not exist 24 months from now. Makes it hard to invest in big things. That said, some of those big things I would challenge may not be what we should be laser focused on, right? CCS, still not a great indication that that's going to help us with reliability in the grid. DAC, direct air capture, very interesting. Apparently it works, but Bloomberg did tell me that the largest DAC facility on the planet only captures about 4,000 tons of CO2 a year. That's equivalent to about 3 seconds of society's output of CO2. So that's not looking like a good thing, at least in the short and medium term, to give us a get-out-of-jail-free card. So where can we get reliability in the context of a net zero grid? Well, how about the grid itself? Right? A smart, flexible, always approach is what we have been seeing in Europe, across Europe, where there has been a much faster pace adoption of renewables, both at utility scale and at the distribution level and behind the meter. There has been laser focus in Ireland and the UK for regulators to be innovative and drive for that flexibility from the grid, finding capacity in an asset that still has a lot to offer. And I think that's where things are going. And that's where, as Canadians in all of our provinces, we need to start thinking and stop ignoring and being myopic about some of these other upstream technologies. One observation from my visit to Europe is that there is a real purposeful buy-in to the idea that an efficient, flexible grid platform is the best way to support net zero power by integrating renewable energy faster and more efficiently and creating more productivity in an affordable way, and being more inclusive of the consumer, which we also likely see a lot of power in. What did AI have to say? I asked the question, can net zero grid be affordable? The answer was unequivocally yes. Requires careful planning, okay, we know that. Long-term investment, long-term thinking, we know that. Regulation obviously has to be thinking in that context as well. But the bullet points on how an affordable grid can be maintained, you'll see on the right-hand side here. Invest in renewable energy, okay, we know that. And I think when we think about policy certainty, although there isn't specific policy certainty, a few things are certain: that renewable energy is something that will grow in its penetration. It will be leaned on in electricity grids of the future and frankly of the now. So that was number one. Enhance energy efficiency, okay, that's a given as well. Develop energy storage solutions, right? That is in-grid, battery storage, other storage options. And modernize grid for flexibility was number 4, fostering regulatory supportiveness, right? All of these things that we're seeing AI answer based on a universe of data points, successes and failures, I assume. You're not seeing invest in CCS. You're not seeing invest in DAC as a get-out-of-jail-free card. I find that pretty interesting. And when I equate that to my real-world examples that we learned about just a few weeks ago, the regulatory landscape in the UK and in Ireland are laser-focused on enabling these very things through regulatory innovation and adoption of smart technology. So I mentioned customer inclusiveness, right? There is a lot of power in the customer to be part of our systemic base of assets. That flexible, inclusive grid, that intelligent grid can unlock the power of the customer, both in terms of what customer choices are being made, what customers are investing in, and how they're interacting with their energy providers to provide capacity services and ancillary services to give us the firm capacity that is required to integrate the renewables. Again, back to Mr. Skynet here, and regulators, be warned, this is what Skynet is telling us to do. The top 5 actions in terms of how to best integrate renewable energy, which obviously helps get us to net zero grids faster, is modernize the grid, smart grid technologies, okay? This used to be talked about, I think, a little bit more in these types of forms than it has been in the last couple of years. This platform is where we need to be thinking. Energy storage solutions, again, pops up to firm renewable energy, intermittent renewable energy, of course. Diversification of renewable sources. So again, back to the idea of not being myopic on singular silver bullet solutions. They don't exist, right? This net zero energy system is going to require some mix of everything, all the options that are available to us. The grid platform, the smart, flexible grid platform, helps to enable integration of all of those options. Demand response programs, pretty tactical one, something that some of our provinces have dabbled with, have had some successes with. Shockingly, not all provinces have used the power of demand response to find capacity and to firm renewables. And then lastly, investment in the transmission distribution system, which is great. It's great for utilities. I think the challenge really for utilities in this country and regulators are to be innovative in terms of regulatory framework, be innovative in what utilities are bringing to the table to advance that flexible, smart, always approach. Some examples from my trip. So there's no more AI here. This is just what we observed on the ground in Ireland. So Ireland electricity system is actually quite a bit like Alberta. It's quite similar to Alberta's electricity system, but the same size, same number of customers, same engineering architecture by and large. I'm not an authority on that, but what they set out to achieve is to have 50% renewables by energy serving their customers by 2025, and they're well on their way to that. This is going to look like 6 gigawatts of onshore wind, okay, intermittent resource, 5 gigawatts of solar, intermittent resource, and a heavy focus on grid flexibility. Achieving 20% grid flexibility by 2025, just a year and a half away. Not even a half a year away, sorry. This is an impressive number, right? And they're getting this out of the distribution system and customer assets. They're doing this to prepare for over 200,000 EVs in the market and 165 megawatts of charging load that they're able to integrate. Ireland is well on its way to achieving a net zero path in its electricity grid and showing that decarb is possible through a diverse mix and a flexible and intelligent grid system. Another example was in northeastern UK. Again, these are significant size utilities, 4 to 5 million customers. They are enabling flexibility services to increase their ability to connect renewables by 49%. So they're getting a much higher connection efficiency in their queues to connect those renewable resources and use them to offset fossil-fired energy production wherever possible. MPG, it's a northeastern utility in the UK, has found that during their current regulatory period, while they plan to invest 608 million total pounds in the grid, only 92 million of this is what we would call flexibility assets, smart grid assets. And they're getting a payback on that of 156 million pounds avoided costs per year on their grid. Since 2015, another utility in the northwest of the UK has been investing about 1.9 billion into their grid system and a strategic focus on flexible grid systems again and enhancement through their ADMS implementations and their class active management customer load system. Customers are able to save $100 million over 20 years through sharing mechanisms under the Rio ED2 architecture, regulatory framework. Simply by leveraging optimized voltage controls with their customer connections, using class, the expected benefits have been demonstrated through 4 pilots that have been recently conducted. These grid projects, combined with the rollout of the Smart Street program, will further deliver demand flexibility through optimization of customer appliances and the ability to better adopt low-carbon technologies and integrate renewables at a much faster pace through their connection process. So in conclusion, and I have an extra 2 minutes, thanks for that. What we found in our adventure across Ireland and the UK, and what AI is telling us, that a smart, flexible, always approach is a key to reliability in a net zero context. It offers affordability, it enhances the reliability of the system, it creates faster connections of renewable energy, which we will need to do to achieve net zero, of course, maximizes those renewables, maximizes distributed energy resources and the customer's interaction with the system, engages the customer, and pursues much greater value. And that is all I have. I won't use the extra. Oh, you know what? This is plus 2 minutes. That's what it is. So I did hit 15. I had to keep it under 15. All good. That is all I have to say. Thank you for your attention. Really appreciate it.